Way back into the distant past, when Pete was like 15. He joined a mail-in movie club, 11 takes for pennies. And now cut to 2025, the movie club caught on to Pete's life. And now they want to punish him, so they trapped him in a room with a bunch of movie tapes. Pete didn't want to pay for the movies he got in the 90s. He'll have to watch random horror tapes and tell us about gore and probably some rape. Now keep in mind, Pete didn't pick. They use random numbers and a long list. He's got to get through every movie, one each day for the time we can't foresee. Helpful snowman roll call. Anxiety. Grouchiness. Entropy. Snow. If you're wondering why he did this song and other FAQ facts, just shut up and listen to this show, or fuck it, take a nice nap. It's Helpful Snowman Podoween 2025.
All right, well, welcome back to the dungeon. Welcome to the dungeon. We've got our first horror movie that I'm being forced to watch this month and then tell you about. So let's just get right into it. It is called Danger USA, or sometimes it's called Mind Trap. Danger USA is probably the better title because Mind Trap makes it sound like, you know, maybe there's a psychological element or like some kind of, I don't know, mental anything to it, which there absolutely isn't. Danger USA sounds like, you know, a really dumb name, like a frat boy would give himself. So I think that's a much more appropriate title for this movie. So let's start with the cover art, because there are two versions that I see quite often of the same movie. Now, one has a lady standing very awkwardly. She's in the foreground, and she's standing so that you can see her butt, but then she's turning around, twisting around so we can see she's firing a machine gun. Imagine if you were trying to stand with your butt facing someone and then turn and fire a machine gun over your hip at them. It's a super awkward stance that doesn't make sense, and I don't think anything like that happens in the movie. I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. And then there's like a guy in a Navy uniform with a gun as well in the sort of background, and then there's just a bunch of fucking lasers. The other version has a lady facing forward in lingerie, who I also don't think is in the movie. It may be a version of someone who's in the movie, but I'm not sure. I don't believe that what I'm seeing happens in the movie, though. There's a hand with a gun, and there's a picture of Dan Haggerty. Now, Dan Haggerty, and the tagline on the first one is, "Hell hath no fury, like an actress bent on revenge," which I guess applies to this movie. The other one is "Total Mind Seduction" is the tagline for Mind Trap, which again I feel is a pretty inappropriate tagline for this movie, because anything that says mind, you know, doesn't make sense. I want to point out the first cover, Dan Haggerty's not depicted, but he's the first name. He's larger. He and someone named Lyle Wagner are the two. In the first cover, Lyle Wagner is like the second build person, and in the other cover, Lyle Waggoner is the Waggoner. So I don't know if this is Lyle Wagner or Lyle Waggoner, but in both, Dan Haggerty is top build. Now in this movie, Dan Haggerty he's in the movie for like 5 minutes. This is Grizzly Adams for the kids, and which doesn't even help. But you know, if you look up Dan Haggerty, either you'll know who he was or you won't. every experience I've had with him being in a movie, which is not many, is that he seems like he's half awake most of the movie. And there have been a few movies. It seemed like there were a few movie makers back in the day who were like, I think we could push this film on the star power of Dan Haggerty. And that is definitely what they have going on here. I mean, I will give them credit because they're like, what are we going to push this movie based on? They're like, well, the promise of nudity, and Dan Haggerty is our biggest star. But here's the real kicker. Like, he's top billed. He's on the cover. He's in the movie for maybe 5 total minutes, right? But not only, that's not as much a fuck you, in my opinion, as the fact that he's like completely ancillary to the movie. Like, he has zero effect on the plot. He's just kind of there. You know what I mean? Like, I fully expected, oh, he's going to be in like a tiny little bit of the movie, probably doing very little, but he'll swoop in at the end, right? Or he'll at least be present for the ending. Not at all. He's not. I think he checks out somewhere like maybe 30 minutes in, and then you just don't see him again. It's the most I came for the paycheck thing I've ever seen. It's kind of amazing. I mean, it is kind of a fantasy, right? That it's like you'd be a star. They're like, we can trick people into seeing this movie. You just you have to show up for one day. There's no way he was there for more than a day. And I don't know if this worked out for Dan Haggerty though, because he has a pretty cursed filmography. Titles include Repo Jake, Night Wars, Abducted 2, The Reunion, and of course, Best Chest in the U.S., in which Dan Haggerty is listed as a guest judge, which really forces the question of what is a movie? Like, is it a thing that happened? And does it become a movie if someone pointed a camera at a thing that happened? Is a wet t-shirt competition a movie? Does filming make it a movie? And if filming it makes it a movie, was it a movie before it was being filmed? You know what I mean? If Best Chest in the U.S. was just a wet t-shirt competition and not in any way a movie, right? Because it wasn't being filmed, and then it became a movie because it was being filmed. By that logic, if they had done all of the things for Raiders of the Lost Ark, but they hadn't filmed it, they'd set everything up, all the actors did the same things, blah, blah, blah. They never cut it together. They just didn't do that part. They were just like, this is kind of just a play that everyone on set is watching, and it only happens one time. That, by the logic here, that would be less of a movie than Best Chest in the U.S. Okay, I'm going to give you a plot summary of this movie. I think most of the movies this month, you're going to get some plot summary because I don't think many of these are going to be movies that I'm like, you should watch this. The movie opens with a daring daylight burglary or robbery. I'm not sure which. I know one is stealing stuff and the other involves like stealing from people or something. There was this time at my apartment where someone put up a thing near the mailboxes that was like, we were robbed the other night, if anyone has camera footage or whatever. And someone else wrote on it with a pen that was like, technically you were burglarized, not robbed. And I was like, okay, Phoenix Wright, ace attorney. But then I know there are a few cops who live around here, and I was like, maybe it's a cop. And then I was like, maybe instead of correcting, the crime term, maybe you should be like, hitting the streets, buddy. So anyway, the burglar is like in the middle of the day trying to steal stuff from some lady who's sleeping in a bed, and he accidentally wakes her up because he's like 2 feet from her while she's asleep in the middle of the goddamn day. And then they play this like very long cat and mouse game, where they're exchanging who has the upper hand in their physical conflict. Here's what's weird. The scene keeps cutting away to like an 18-wheeler just driving down the highway for no apparent reason. And I was like, is this Dan Haggerty? He could be a truck driver, right? But I was like, what's happening? Why do we keep cutting to, it's like this woman fighting for her life, and then I'm just seeing an 18-wheeler go down the highway. So then the burglar, of course, threatens to rape the lady because this is a piece of shit movie from the 80s. And that's how they rolled. And 2 minutes into the 31 movies of the month, and we've got our first threat of rape. It happened so much faster. I thought it would happen. Happened much faster than I thought. So the lady, I think her name is Shayna or Shauna. Let's say Shayna. She escapes by putting her foot under her cat, which is sitting on the floor, and then flings the cat into the burglar's face, which, I guess would probably work, but definitely reflects the flippant attitude people had towards pet ownership in the 80s. You know what I mean? Everybody just let their cats go outside, all that stuff. I mean, Bob Barker had to ask everyone to spay and neuter their pets. That was asking a lot. You know what I mean? People then had beliefs about pets, and one of those beliefs, I guess, was that it was important that their dogs had balls that they could look at. And it was also a belief that you could use a cat as a projectile. Anyway, they screw around for a while. And then when we see the truck going down the highway 10 more times. It keeps being intercut. So then the woman, Shayna, runs to the front door and she opens it. And we see that her house is actually a mobile home, which is loaded on the back of the 18-wheeler we've seen a bunch of times. It's like a shipping container house or something, right? So, and this is where we figured out, this house is on the back of the truck that's going. I see. But here's why this is super dumb, right? How did the burglar get in the house? I mean, presumably there would be no way for him to get into it except when it was shooting down the highway. And it's also weird because, I have to assume both the burglar and the lady are aware that the house is in motion. You know what I mean? Unless this lady just woke up in a strange house, but it seems to have her cat in it. You know what I mean? So everyone else but the viewer knows what's happening. And then the viewer finds out, the house is shooting down the highway. But then I'm I don't know. Do I care about that? I mean, it's a twist for me, but I'm why did she just open the door? She opened the door to reveal to the viewer that they were going down the highway. So they fight. And then the woman manages to knock the guy out the door and onto the highway, where I assume he just got killed because in 1989, you could probably just drive on highways without getting stuck because some asshole opened a Buc-ee's somewhere and backs traffic all the way off to the off-ramp. And then the lady bends down and picks up a newspaper off of her front stoop, which again is going, 80 miles an hour. And I'm going to be honest with you right now, this was such a dumb opening to the movie. It was so stupid, and it filled me with hope. You know what I mean? Because I was I've seen a lot of bad and dumb movies. And the worst kind of bad, dumb movie is an incompetent movie that's also just boring. It doesn't have, nothing's going on. And I'm this is dumb, but there's things happening. So it filled me with hope, but hope is such a delicate thing, right? If there's one thing a lifetime of being me has proven time and again, it's that hope is easily shattered. So then we pull out and we find out that a bunch of people were watching this same scene on a big screen. And what we were watching is part of a fictional movie within the movie. And our heroine, Shayna, is the main character in both the fake movie, the movie within the movie, and the movie. This happens a couple other times throughout the movie where, you'll be watching a scene and it starts to get kind of ridiculous and silly. And then it gets ridiculous and silly in ways that I'm this seems odd. I don't know what's going on. But and sometimes I complain about, and so there are multiple other movies that happen within this movie. Or there'll be something great happening, and then it pulls out and it's this person, Shayna, on a TV because she's an actress. And someone's wow, her career's really gone to shit. Sometimes I complain about stuff like this because when you can't tell if you're in a movie or a reality, I don't like when a movie when they're tripping on drugs and you can't tell what's real. But with Danger USA, there was a pretty consistent, although I don't think it was intentional way to figure out whether you're watching Danger USA or a different dumb movie within the movie. And here's the way. If you're enjoying what you see, even a little, pretty good chance that you're in the fake movie, right? All right. Things in this movie get convoluted almost immediately. Apparently, Shayna's dad was working on some kind of dream machine, which he hid in a storage locker somewhere. And Shayna thinks her dad is dead, but he's definitely not dead. He's just in a hospital or maybe works at a military facility or something. It's pretty unclear. But a bunch of goons break into where the dad is, and there's a pretty good scene because they blow him away for like a minute, like RoboCop style, right? Where they're just like shooting him with machine guns. But, there's no like gore effect. He's just like, But what the funny thing is the old man had gone into his office before getting all shot up and demonstrated that he has the clapper in his office. So, he claps, the lights turn on. So the whole time they're shooting him, the lights are strobing on and off, which, I mean, this is not like, that's cinema, but it's a gag. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know, maybe this movie will be okay. Like they're trying something. Okay, there's also a subplot where a sleazy director wants to get Shayna to be in some kind of political campaign ads. Like, I guess he's set up that he's making horrible ads for horrible people. And we do get another movie within a movie where there's a shootout. And once again, I was briefly having a good time. So, of course, that wasn't Danger USA. That was a different movie within the movie. The director is really not important other than he brings on the first instance of super gratuitous nudity where he just has an assistant who doesn't wear a top. She just comes in. She's not wearing a top. And then he expounds on some kind of government conspiracy surrounding breast milk. And that everyone in government only drinks breast milk.
Your breasts are looking very lovely tonight, my dear.
Thank you, sir.
Perhaps you can come by a little bit later on tonight and play wet nurse.
I'd be honored, sir.
There's no reason in the world to give up mother's milk.
No reason, sir. No reason at all.
It keeps me young. It keeps me hip. It keeps me in tune with America.
That's what keeps you in touch with the 90s, sir.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have it on good authority that there's some very high people in the Pentagon who will not use Cremora.
They have entire battalions of wet nurses just waiting.
The second instance of gratuitous nudity comes when our heroine is chasing one of the killers, or maybe she's being chased, I'm not sure. And they run into what is basically an open warehouse where it seems a dominatrix is like doing her thing and she's topless, why not? And the dominatrix and her client are just sort of continue what they're doing, even though a gunfight kind of just like rolls right through the whole affair. You know what I mean? Which is like, in the world of the movie, it makes no sense, right? I mean, it makes no sense that you would just be doing that. It looks like what she's doing is dominatrixing in what is like, how a CrossFit gym will open in like a shitty portable building and they'll just open the garage door and they're just like, fresh air, that's part of CrossFit, right? It kind of looks like that, which doesn't seem like an ideal dominatrix thing, but I don't know, maybe that's part of the thing. I'm not shaming that whole part of it. It's just like a very weird addition to the movie. And it seems to me pretty obvious that they're like, some guy was like, we need more titties in this picture. So they shoehorned those in as best they could. You know what I mean? They were like, what if as they're having a gunfight, whatever. And, like I've seen movies with, shoehorning in of boobs. I mean, I believe Demolition Man has, it's a video phone and someone just calls Sylvester Stallone topless and is like, whoops, wrong number. And so then they were like, well, that's how we're going to get boobs in this movie. You might be wondering at this point where the horror element of this movie comes in, which I was also wondering at this point. And I'm still wondering. Okay. Let's just go towards the climax of the film and please excuse me for using that term considering what's coming up. We find that one of the masked goons who shot up the dad is actually Shayna's fiance, which we definitely already knew because we were watching the movie, and it's extremely obvious because why else would he be wearing a mask and so on? But whatever, it's fine. So Shayna's stuck in a room with a bomb that's going to explode, right? That's how they finally capture her. She goes on this whole revenge thing. It's not really important. They trap her in a room with a bomb that's going to explode, right? And there's like 2 or 3 minutes on the timer. And so her ex-fiance now, I guess, is like, has her tied up and whatever. And she's like, maybe we should do it one last time before I'm dead. And, she seduces him, I guess you would call it, convinces him, whatever. He must have been 90% of the way there, because to be convinced, I don't know that my entire life it would have been impossible for me to perform next to a bomb that was going to explode in 2 minutes. And this is not me like bragging about I could go all night, baby. This is me saying, like, I think even as like a horny 17-year-old, I would have been like, I don't know. This is very distracting, right? This is super difficult to do. It's almost like maybe that's what we should tell people instead of like, think of baseball or think of your grandma naked on a pile of garbage. We should be like, think that there's a bomb next to you that's going to explode and you're kind of distracted by the timer. So anyway, she's trying to like distract him while he's banging her, and then so he can't leave the room, I guess, in time. And she succeeds by kind of rolling his body on top of hers, which shields her from the horribly superimposed bomb explosion. And, she walks away from it 100% fine while he's dead. So, I mean, pretty ineffective bomb, I guess. It's kind of like in the World War II movie where the guy throws himself on the grenade and saves everyone else. It's like that, but, less voluntary, much less heroic. And, of all the times rape has saved the day, I'm not going to finish that sentence. We're going to just move on. At the film's end, Shayna gets into her father's dream room somehow. This all has to do with like a key, and they somehow get a key and whatever. And she finds the dream room, which is like a dentist's office crossed with a 70s game show set crossed with something from Logan's Run or something. She sits in like a dentist chair and puts on like a helmet and dreams of her family, they're all dead now, but I guess they live on in her dreams or in a dream realm, or who the fuck knows. At first, it seems like her dream dad is in pain or something. Like he kind of moans and has this pained face like he's a ghost. But then everyone's on a yacht just being happy. And she takes off the helmet and someone's like, how's the dream room? And she's like, it fucking rules. And that's the end. So this movie had 0 horror elements. You know what I mean? The closest I can come to saying that it had anything to do with a horror movie is having gratuitous nudity, which is definitely something horror movies tended towards. But, action movies of that time also did the same thing. So let's not put too much stock in that, right? The only kind of movie that didn't seem to, like, boner comedies did it, horror movies did it, action movies did it, those sort of like steamy thrillers did it. It's probably rom-com was like the only movie where you're not going to see some boobs. Overall, super stupid movie that's kind of a great encapsulation of a type of thing that they don't make anymore. And not like, and there are good reasons they don't make this anymore. It's not like, oh, they don't make them like this anymore while you're looking at like some cool car or something. It's more like they don't make them like this anymore when you're looking at an iron lung or something. Yeah, I complained to the guard of the dungeon, of course, that this was not a horror movie. And we had a pretty long debate, mostly me talking and trying to explain the movie, and him asking me to repeat things because he wasn't listening. And then he promised to tell the tall man what happened and ask if he was sure the movie came from the right movie pit. And, let's just say if this was something that was selected in some way other than from the movie pit that I'm forced to watch movies from, it was course corrected immediately following this. I want to try and rate each movie in some way. You know, I feel like there's got to be a rating system for movies that I could come up with. So here's how this one kind of goes for me. Once upon a time, someone invented movies, and they invented movie theaters, and this meant there were screens in the world, and people had to make things because things needed to go on those screens that had been invented, right? How many movie screens do I think would need to be in the world for Danger USA to have a place on one of them? Like, how many screens could be going at the same time, all showing something different before I would say, yeah, you know, throw Danger USA on one of them? I just looked it up, and there are like 200,000 movie theater screens in the world. So let's call it 200,001. If there was just one more screen in the world, I suppose screening Danger USA would be justified. And I do want everyone to keep in mind that preceding it on screen 200,000 would be Best Chest in the U.S.
It's hopeful Snowman Podoween 2025.